Good afternoon. Welcome. This afternoon's guest lecturer is Dr. Xavier Salomon. He is the Arturo and Holly Melosi Chief Curator of the Dulwich Picture Gallery in London. He has received his BA, MA, and PhD from the Courtauld at the University of London. And he's here to speak to us about the Dulwich Gallery and the artwork that we have on exhibit downstairs. And would like me to remind you that there is a docent by tour this afternoon at 1 o'clock. Everyone should meet in the lobby.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Christina, for the introduction. It's a real pleasure to be here today and to be in Fresno for the past week. I'm escaping the London weather, the grey and rain. And it's just so wonderful to be in the sun and get to see all the wonderful nature sites around here. So what I'm going to do today is tell you a bit about the Dulwich Picture Gallery and talk about the exhibition downstairs. This is a touring exhibition. We have very strong links with the United States, and we've been promoting a whole series of events, in a way displaying American art in London. We're actually one of the few museums who does that in London, and we've been working very closely with the American Embassy to do this. And as part of that, we're also touring parts of our collection around the state. So the exhibition you'll see downstairs of the Dutch Italianates, 39 Dutch Italian paintings, has just arrived from Virginia. It was at the Mascarelli Museum of Art in Williamsburg, Virginia, and it will then travel on to Pittsburgh and to Oklahoma City. And then next year in March, we're sending top 9 paintings, the highlights of the collection, to the Frick collection in New York. So this is all part of an ongoing program. But let's start with where the pictures come from and why they got there and where they usually live. And as you can see from this slide, Dulwich Picture Gallery, this is the actual building, this is the museum, sits in pretty idyllic landscape. Very green, obviously. Not always as sunny as in this slide, I have to confess, but slightly cheating there. This was it is the oldest public art gallery in England, and it's not as old as other European institutions, but for an American audience especially, it's very old. 2011 will be a bicentenary. We opened in 1811. The building is also very important and fundamental because it's one of the first, well, it's the first public art gallery built as a public art gallery in England. And so the building becomes the blueprint for all museums to come in the country. And it's very simple things like skylights, which of course you can see in this photograph. The idea that natural light can come into the building and that each room is designed to have paintings displayed in them is particularly revolutionary for 1811. And it becomes part of a long-standing tradition, and many modern museums built even in recent years the architects have gone back to Dulwich and looked at the building and were influenced by it in some way or another. The two examples that come straight to mind are the extension to the National Gallery in London, built in the 1980s by the Victorian Scott Brown, and, for example, without going so far, the Kimball Museum of Art in Fort Worth, Texas, which Louis Kahn built in the 70s, I believe. And again, many of the architectural features of that building are directly related to Dulwich. Dulwich sits in the middle of a village, Dulwich Village, which is about 5 miles south of the river in London. And it's one of those strange situations where for Londoners, Dulwich always feels like it's the end of the world. But in fact, it is fairly central. Our main problem is public transportation. It's very difficult to get to Dulwich with public transportation, but in a way that's also what saves the area. And as you can see, for an area which is fairly central, a lot of green has been preserved around the museum. And that's because most of the area belongs to Dulwich College, one of the most important schools in London, a boys' private school. And the college has been, it's there since the 17th century, and since the 17th century they've been very keen to preserve the area as much as possible, so building restrictions very important there, and buses can't really stop along the village and in the museum and so on. I always say the distance between Trafalgar Square to Dulwich, which is south of the river, is about the same as from Trafalgar Square to Notting Hill Gate, so it's obviously not that far out, but the feeling is totally different. You suddenly arrive in this sort of oasis of green and countryside, and it feels like you're in a different city, and that's what's so wonderful about working there, living there, and also visiting the gallery. So we're a sort of hidden gem in a way, and when tourists come to London, of course, they always go to the National Gallery, the British Museum, and Tate, and so on, the great institutions of central London. But we're always a bit of a kind of special place where people can go. It's more of a day experience to come out and enjoy the weather, and if the weather is nice, and food, and just be at the gallery for the day. Now, what you see here is the museum as it is today. In fact, not all of it is the original building. The series of rooms that you see to the left were added at different stages in the 20th century. And the original building, as it opened in 1811, is the central part and the part to the right. And just to show you, it's this series of rooms over here and the ones on this side, to the east side. They're a very simple series of rooms. They're a cube, double cube, cube, double cube, cube, so that it's a straightforward enfilade, long series of rooms. And then onto this side, originally was housing for 6 old ladies, and as part of the charitable acts of the college and the gallery, we had to house these 6 old ladies, and so those were their apartments adjacent to the gallery. Now, the old ladies were moved out in the 19th century, but they're still on the premises, obviously not the same ones. It's still part of our mission. The other strange thing about the gallery, which is very unusual in England, if not in Europe in general, is that our founders are actually buried on site, and so there is a mausoleum attached to the gallery. And it's this building here with the tower. And we'll see more of that in a second. Now, the building is also built in very simple materials. As part of the original history of the gallery, money was an issue. When one of our founders left the paintings to the gallery, to the college, his widow decided eventually to have the building built, and it was Sir John Soane, the very famous Regency English architect, who built the building from 1811 to about 1812-13. And it was done, because there wasn't a lot of money, it was done with very simple materials. So all of what you see is actually London brick, and a lot of the structure is also wood. So it's very simply and elegantly designed. But it is, while the outside looks fairly simple for a London building, the interior instead is much more rich and opulent in a way. And so this is the view across the enfilade. Looking down to some of the great pictures, the end wall has 2 pictures by Guido Reni, the 17th century Italian artist, one by Veronese, a Venetian Renaissance artist, and the 2 smaller ones below are by Raphael. And then throughout the gallery, the paintings are now displayed according more or less to school. And so the room that we're looking into is the Flemish room, and you see many paintings in there by Rubens, by Van Dyck, and by Teniers. And again, you see this sort of rhythm of rooms, of the sort of, and this obviously a rectangular room, the double cube followed by the cube, and so on. And again, you see the light. Of course, this photograph doesn't quite do it justice, but the skylights, of course, create this kind of effect of light inside the gallery. There was no electricity at Dulwich Picture Gallery until the 1980s. So it's sort of amazing that we use the natural light for such a long time. Also, the sort of modern-looking white areas, sort of above, kind of below the ceiling, are also, they look so incredibly modern, but they're part of the original 19th century design from 1811, and they're simply designed so that the light doesn't come onto the pictures directly, but sort of hits different surfaces, and it's then sort of filtered in a way and illuminates the paintings in the under the ideal conditions. The other thing that's very special about Dulwich is the colour of the walls. And again, this slide